Truelove Quilts for You, Jean Truelove. Thank you for watching me. Today I don't have any drastic stories to tell you, thank goodness. I'm coming to you from a fairly sunny, very sunny, very hot Pennsylvania day. We did have some rain the other day and I was quaking in my boots because, as you know, we had a flood several days ago in our home. Our son, who owns this home, we are renting it from our son. He is in the process of having our house raised. And if you were following, you would know that we were saying it's a long, drawn-out process. We have plans in place. This is a one-story, what called a rancher or bungalow home. In the old part of the house was built in about 1940. The old part of the house, there is a basement, and that has flooded in the past. This has never flooded though. We are in a flood plain. We are in a flood zone, but the weather, and it's only flooded a few times since 1940, 80 years, but they're becoming more frequent because, as you know, the climate around the world is crazy. Crazy. Tornadoes and hurricanes and flooding. We have woods here, and the other day I ran into Ian and I said, "Did you hear that? A great big bang, crash? I don't know what it was. And he's like, "I didn't hear it." He was in the other part of the house. I was in my sewing room, and I thought, "Oh, nothing untoward." Well, Maxwell was out in the woods, and here a tree, another tree has fallen. In the woods. We have woods behind us, and in these storms, and I believe it's the emerald ash or elm. Is it the elm or ash? Ash trees in this area are dying. I mean, big time, and they're becoming what they're called widowmakers. So we have several of them back there. Not enough to hit the home, but that one, Maxwell discovered it, and we went running down, and sure enough, it is cracked. It's dangerous. We have to get the boys to get it down. So out come the chainsaws. But anyway, so this week I've just not been feeling. It's getting to me. It's getting to me, as it is all of you. I've been home pretty much since February, March, going out just now and again. Very, very odd. This whole pandemic, quarantine, lockdown, sheltered home, stay at home, masked. It's very bizarre, and it just got to me this week. So I just hung around. I watched some Prime videos. I watched television. I had a cup of tea. I was just relaxing, not doing an awfully lot, because what I did want to do is I wanted to start working on my Dresden Plate Quilt here behind me, as you had seen before. I'm fed up. I don't want to do it. I thought, I'm like, I can quilt that, and I'm thinking I will quilt it. And I got the fabric for, I don't know where the fabric is, the backing fabric. I will quilt it, but I just didn't feel like it's too hot, and I don't know. As I keep saying, I just can't get stuck into it. But quite a few have been asking, how did you do this Dresden plate with the white background? Dresden plates have been around forever, and I do say it when I'm videoing it, and I don't mean to sound sarcastic. I do sound sarcastic, but I don't mean to come off as like flippant and sarcastic, like, oh, stupid Dresden plates. They're a very traditional, very old-fashioned quilt block, the Dresden Plate Quilt block, made up of all the different fans. And I say, oh, it's sort of boring. Well, in my estimation, it sort of is. You see an awfully lot of beautiful Dresden plates. I've made them on lovely pieced plate, appliqued onto a lovely cream or white background, very traditional looking. Super. I've done it myself. But as I was discovering on this one, I had this fat quarter pack that I had wanted to use, an 18-inch square, an 18-inch or 18.5-inch square. And I thought, well, I would like to showcase that, but with a Dresden plate you can't, because it's a scrappy on pattern. It's pattern on pattern. Hence, I did the white background, right? Okay. And it's not a pieced background. I have seen better, more professional quilters do like a pieced plate, a white plate, and then they applique the patterned plate on top of it. So you get true Dresden plate things. I can't be bothered. But the first I want to address I want to address the different rulers that you can get. And again, I sort of addressed this in the beginning of my sort of a tutorial, not on my quilt, but how I actually made this. As I said, a few of you are interested. I can't do specifics because whatever ruler or template you get, it might be slightly different. I have quite a few that I've accumulated over the years. I have this Dresden plate, this Dresden plate. They all look the same, but they're not. They all have slightly different profiles, slightly different ends. And again, you can make a big honking thing. That's an 8-inch, but that would end up about 24-inch square Dresden plate. Huge, great big one plate if you did the whole thing. Or this one, massive, huge, great big Dresden plate. So we were just concentrating on this one, smaller ones. This one is it's called this is a 2009 Annalie Belden fast to cut templates, they're called, and they have an actual the square, which again is makes the point. If you cut it square, you cut it and make a point, and then a rounded top. If you cut it round, then you have a rounded top. And again, I've done wall hangings and Dresden plates in previous videos. If you just want to check them, how I actually made a big Dresden plate. But this one, and this is a normal one. I believe I used this 6-inch. I used this Dresden plate by Darlene Zimmerman quilting. I believe I did that one with this behind me. That's scrappy plate look. But with this, I wanted to show you what I've done. This is a sort of a prototype. This is a little quilt block. Now this was done with solids or tone-on-tone solids and the white with a batik. I just used the batik fat quarter I had. Now as you can see, this is a slightly different Dresden plate. This has the finished points on the inside. That is because, and you know I do not tout buying this ruler, buying that ruler. I just happen to have it. The method that I use to put this Dresden plate on the white is exactly the same if you just have a regular Dresden plate ruler. To make a Dresden plate, you do need to purchase or have a template of the Dresden plate. You obviously need that. But again, I'm not all about buying gadgets and gizmos. However, I've had this Dresden plate. It's called a 36 circle. What is that? 36 degree? Oh, I don't know about that. 36 circle double wide Dresden ruler. Okay, I got this at a quilt show a while ago, and as you can see, this ruler here, it's called a double wide Dresden ruler. Me and my sister's designs. I got this at a quilt show. Secondary star pattern in the center, no raw edges. That's right, half the work, double the fun. Fast, fun, easy. Makes 2.5 to 7.5 inch 36 degree Dresden wedges. Designed by Barb and Mary of Me and My Sister's Designs 2016. Okay, so that's what this is called. The double wide Dresden ruler makes a Dresden fan piece with a finished top and a finished bottom. Okay, so that is that plate that I've made to make this sample here. And I have made that sample, again, as I say, with batik fabric and solids, so it's very graphic, but I use the white. Now, I've said it all along, you don't need to applique these on white. You could have these light colored and applique it on black and have a light color, a light pattern background. Oh, it makes all the difference, obviously, your fabric choices. Now that's that one, but the tutorial, a semi-tutorial looking over my shoulder, is how I made this one here. And again, this one looks like me. It's pink and red and flowers, I know. And I believe some of it was that behind me, the fat quarters I had left over. This fat quarter I had left over, and I chose some charm squares because I just used charm squares to cut out these bits here, and then I appliqued onto the white, and then I appliqued the white onto the patterned fat quarter background. And so that's how, and again, I show you, I appliqued my, and I show you, I appliqued my plate onto the white with white thread. using a wide blanket stitch on my brother. You need a decorative stitch. You can hand stitch it, because this is a finished edge. You could do a needle turn, not a needle turn because it's finished. You could do a very beautiful hand stitching applique. You could do a zigzag stitch. You could do a satin stitch. You could do a blanket stitch. I love my blanket stitch, as you know. So I chose to do a blanket stitch in white. But then I actually used a red to applique my white onto the background. So it's just a little thing you see there. I chose to line this, and I show you how to do it, and you're probably freaking out because I used my purple glue stick. It hasn't dried yet. It shows, but it will dry. It's invisible. It's wonderful. I chose to line this. I didn't line the entire white thing, but I did this one because my background was showing slightly through, and that's a larger bit than the edges around. But I show you how I just actually marked. I just marked the pieces of my white fabric around to get the points, and then that gives a bit of relief. As you see, it gives relief, and it makes a Dresden plate just a little bit happier and a little bit more modern, or a little bit more traditional, whatever look this is. And then again, whatever I chose to do this with my white sashing, and then a little red cornerstone. So this block, maybe I'll make a pretty cushion out of this. It's an 18-inch square. That would make a lovely little, or a little wall hanging. You could just quilt that, make a wall hanging. Again, these are sort of my samples, but the difference in choosing fabrics, the darker fabrics. Now, as you can see, I use the same white. The dark fabric sort of shows through a little bit. I should have lined that, but it's okay. It's all right. Once it has batting on it, it's okay. But this one, for some reason, that's real dark, but for some reason this dark green really showed through. So I just stuck a hunk of fabric back there. And then when I go, and I glued it down. And then when I go to quilt this, I'll either do like an echo stitch, or I'll outline it, or do a pretty flower in the middle there, just like I will be doing this this Dresden plate. Again, this is made with a traditional ruler, and this one here is made with this Me and My Sister's Design, www.meandmysisterdesigns.com. So if you want to look that up, that's this, and it's delightful, isn't it? Isn't it sweet? And again, there's 11 plates, fans on here. I think you're supposed to do like a scant 1/4 inch, so you'd end up with 10. I ended up with 11. It's fine. I pressed all my seams. I don't show you how I do that. I show you how I make this, but I'm not going on and on about my Dresden plate, because what you're going to be making will be slightly different. Your rulers, whatever size rulers you get or whatever, it's just the basic way to make a traditional Dresden plate. But this one has a finished bottom and a finished pointed top. So I think that's real sweet. So this is the little semi-tutorial that I'm showing you today, how to make. This was my sort of prototype. Again, fabric quantities, you know me, I just pull. But I was trying to figure out if this quilt behind me is 20 blocks. So I obviously used 20 fat quarters for the pattern. And then the white is approximately an 18-inch square that you begin with, and then you cut it down to your points. So an 18-inch square, you can get 4 of them out of 1 yard of fabric. Is that correct? Yeah, about 4 18-inch squares out of 1 yard of fabric. So you need several yards of white background to make 20 blocks, obviously. And then charm squares are just 5-inch squares. And this ruler calls for to do it from a fat quarter, which I did, or a 4.5-inch square. But you can look at if you were going to get this. But again, you can just, if you have scraps, however big you want to make your Dresden plate is determining the size of your background fabric. I mean, that's a decent sized quilt block. It makes a nice sized quilt block. And this is probably one of the smaller Dresden sizes, the Dresden blades. Again, if you did a Dresden plate that big, you have one huge, great big wall hanging or something. So anyway, that's my little tutorial today. We're happy today. Maxwell's home. He's been working hard with his one brother. And Ian is out. We had a bit of a day yesterday. A bit of a day off. We just chilled out. Again, nerves from the flood, nerves from the weather. It's beautiful out here and it's gorgeous here. But everywhere we go, disaster. Our son, as I've been telling you, is a public adjuster. And the claims, they've had trees and people are still out with power. I mean, it's crazy around here. The weather has been nuts. Tornado, it's been nuts. And the poor people out west, that whatever it was that touched down, Jericho, something like that. I was reading about it. Oh my word, it's dreadful. Keep these people in our prayers and our thoughts. We're so very, very, very blessed. We really are. So one day at a time, that's how we take it. Hopefully I'll be letting you know the slow process of trying to raise our home. It's going to be a process. It's probably going to be a bit of an ordeal. I'll have stories to tell. But anyway, I just thought I'd take my mind off something. I will get around to doing this quilt whenever. But I thought you'd be interested to know how I actually did the white points. So that's my little thing. I hope you enjoy yourself watching this. Thank you for taking time to watch me. You've been very, very loyal, kind people. And as always, I appreciate it. And please keep healthy and keep safe. All right, from the Trueloves to your home. Have a good one. See ya. Different. So for what I'm going to be making, my one block that I'm going to show you, and if you wanted to make all sorts of blocks, you could. What I'm going to show you is I have this ruler here, this Dresden, double wide Dresden ruler, okay? And then I have a fat quarter here. I haven't cut this yet. This is a fat quarter line from Connecting Threads. Oh, beautiful. I love their stuff. Beautiful. I believe this is the one, I used a lot of this in my actual quilt. This is a fat quarter left over. As you can see, Connecting Threads cuts them ever so generously. A fat quarter is usually like 18 by 22 or 18 by 23 or something like that. This is very generously cut. I have to cut this down and I will be showing you. So I have one fat quarter, okay? That was my one fat quarter here, all right? Now, again, you need, if you're going to be doing it on white to make it pop, you're going to be needing a piece of white fabric. And again, this is a tone on tone. This is the right side. Again, this is about an 18-inch square, roughly. So again, people say, how much fabric do I need? Well, if you do an 18-inch, if this is an 18.5-inch block here, finishing at 18 inches, and this is, I start with an 18-inch square, about a 17 or 18-inch square here. You could get, what, four of these out of 1 yard of fabric. So it takes a bit of fabric. So yeah, whatever. Now, this one I have used, and again, I don't know if this is right or not. I think it called for 10, but let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I used 11 charm squares to make this Dresden plate. I used 11, okay, and it ended up that way. So I have my fat quarter, I have my 18-inch square, 17-inch square, something, and I have 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 charm squares. Now, my charm squares are 5 inches square, okay? And I'm not going to bore you, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to be cutting these down to 4.5 inches. Okay? You're just going to be cutting them down to 4.5 inches. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to be cutting these down. I'll just do a couple at a time. To 4.5 inches. I believe that's what it is. It's let me see, a 4. I've just really done that, but 4.5 inch. This says if you're using strips of fabric, cut a strip of fabric 4.5 inches wide. Well, I'm cutting my charm squares at 4.5 inches. I'm just going to cut one edge of 4.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark. This is a 5-inch square, and this is my half-inch square. My half-inch, I can see. So there's my half-inch. I'm going to take half inch off of my charm square, just like that, on all of them. Take half an inch off and make it 4.5. Now this is going to be 4.5 by 5 inches, obviously, right? So I think it's that. Yeah, that worked out here. So there's my 4.5. So now, what you do with this here, that's a 4.5 by 5 inch thing. It says you put the half inch up on there. You put the half inch mark, the half inch up at the top, letting it hang off. So there's my half inch off the top. Now, I've noticed that it's not, I didn't really need to cut that half inch off, but I've noticed that when I made these, it's just not quite, doesn't, oops, let me see, we just turn this around. Doesn't quite go to the edge. Well, that one does. That's pretty good. So we have pieces this size. This is my size here. Oh, let me know. No, there we go. So, oh yeah. Well, no, that should be up there. But that's okay, that's how I did it then. Okay, so I think I sort of messed up there because my rotary cutter. So I have the half inch up there. Scratch these together. Bear with me. The half inch is hanging off. That's it. The half inch is hanging off. Going like that. Turning it around with a half inch hanging off. That's it. And what I meant is this edge is not quite. Let me just see if that's it. That works there. Not quite, but it's fine because that's taken up in the seam allowance. So my half inch hangs off. That's to make this size. Half inch hanging off. Cutting it that way. Half inch hanging off. Lining that side up. And cutting it like that. Now, so we have these 11 pieces that are cut exactly off of this ruler. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to show you how very quickly I make these Dresden plates here that end up looking like that. So now, with the right sides together of our funky little piece here, with the right sides, the pretty side, which on this one you can't really tell because it's a solid, I'm going to be sewing 1/4 inch, and I'm just going to be chain piecing these. I'm just going to finish up these. I'm just going to chain piece the top bits together. Just get it right under the presser foot there. I'm going to chain piece these together, the right sides together. And as you can see, it's sort of cut off there, but that's in the seam and that's fine. My machine is ever so noisy, and I keep oiling it. I put a new needle in, and it's clicking away. It's stitching beautifully. I don't know what's up with it. Oh, as you can see, I put these actually in an order, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. How I hopefully will put the block together. Again, as you know, I do things visually. And again, I think my other one needed 11 pieces, so I've cut 11 pieces. Maybe if I did a scant 1/4 of an inch, it would be like 10 pieces, but it's fine. So now I'm going to keep them together. I'm going to pull that out. I'm just going to turn this around. This is chain piecing at its best. And I'm just going to come back, and on the bottom here, as you know, on your Dresden plates, you would just be cutting these chains apart. But I'm going to keep them together. And then on my bottom, I'm just going to, they sort of put the right sides together anyway. A 1/4 inch. And just finish stitching the right sides together. 1/4 of an inch. This is a wonderful way to use scraps. So I'm cutting these. I'm cutting these at 4.5. Well, it was 4.5 by 5 inches. Yeah. So I just thought that. Yeah. That's worked out. These worked out nice, as you can see. So put that together a bit better. Me and my white thread. Okay, now, oh, my scissors are over there. Anyway, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut all of these apart. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to cut all of these apart, my chains here, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to turn them, I'm going to turn them inside out. And then I'll go to my ironing board and I'll show you what we do. So, I've turned these around. And I have one left, and what you're going to do with these, this is how it's come off of the sewing machine that you've sewn the top and the bottom. I've just put my finger up there and in there, and I turn it inside out. Now this I do use you either use a stiletto or a pair of sharp scissors, but just be sure to poke that out carefully, not to poke through the fabric. And I just sort of finger press inside the seam to one side, and by all means, if you wanted to iron it to get the exact center, you can. I just eyeball it like that. And then I sort of just put my iron in there, and then I just spread that there. Just spread the bottom one. And again, they're all finished. They're all finished points at the bottom. And there we end up with that bit there. Okay? Now, that's roughly how my block's going to look. Now what I'm going to do, again, I'm not going to bore you. I'm going to go over to my ironing board and to my sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch together the raw side. You see that's how it's finished on the inside, okay? And we have 2 raw edges. So like dark to light, I'm going to match up those edges. If they're not quite matching up, you can just sort of press it up, finger press it up, so that both ends, that doesn't match at all. It'll match. Yeah, I just sort of press it so that these side pieces here match up. And I'm just going to do 1/4 of an inch seam all the way down, and all the way around. So I'll have made my plate. I'll just keep attaching. I do 2 by 2s, keeping in order, and just the raw seams there, the 2 raw side seams there. So we end up with a completely finished outside points and inside points on our plate there. So I finished making my Dresden plate. Again, I'm not going into specifics about the actual Dresden plate, because your rulers will all be different. So however many blades you have or fans you have here will depend on the size of your ruler. If you have a round top or if you have a square top, a pointed top, that's up to you, or the size of your ruler. This is how mine has ended up, okay? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 blades in my my plate here. So now I've taken my white piece of fabric, and again, this is just about an 18-inch square, sort of a scrap, and I'm putting it, I'm just eyeballing so I have enough fabric left around the edges, about 2 inches around each edge here, just sort of squaring that up. Like the point, there's a point here and then 2 points there. That's how it's going to be. So basically like that. Pretty much even all around like that. Look at how it pops already. Now, as you know, you can applique this however you wish. I always use my glue sticks, my Elmer glue. I like my Elmer glue. This is a disappearing ink that I use. I've never had trouble with it. I think I've never had trouble with my needle gumming up. People say, do your needles gum up when you use the glue? Perhaps because what I do, and I will show you, I always do my glue stick and then I'll go over to my iron and I'll iron it. I'll iron it from the other side. I'll iron this from the other side. And I don't know if that like dries out the glue or what. So that's the tops here, the top bits, just to secure it. And then I'll just do a little dab on here because on this Dresden plate, we're securing, this is our circle. I mean, this is our center. It's already done here. So we're securing these points on this Dresden plate here. So I want to secure these down with a little drop of glue. And again, I'm going to go over to my ironing board. I'm going to turn that around like that. So you can see that glue will disappear. And I'll just press this really nicely here. And it sort of dries the glue out. And again, I have no trouble whatsoever with my needle gumming up. Now, once I do that, I'm going to go over to my machine and I'm going to blanket stitch this.
Get a ring light.
That's it. Okay. Okay, so I'm just finishing up.
Okay.
Max, I was trying to figure out the lighting here. I'm just trying a different angle.
Light.
I know I have to get a better light. I'm just appliquing this. Okay, I'm just doing a blanket stitch on my white fabric. I'm appliquing my Dresden plate onto my. It all creased up there. It wasn't supposed to happen. There you go. And
good job. You had one job.
Stop, Max. I had one job to do. So I'm just doing a blanket stitch on my computerized sewing machine here. I'm just finishing this up. This isn't, again, you can applique your Dresden plate however you wish to on your background fabric, your white. This doesn't have to be white. I was thinking that if you wanted to do it all black, it could pop. It's just a matter of having the pattern Dresdens showing up on a patterned background, because as I was saying, Dresdens are a little bit predictable. They're pretty patchworky, you know, scrappy blocks that all sort of look the same because they're on a white background. And this just gives it a nice more of a patterned finish. So I'm just going to finish up this Dresden plate, appliquing it. By all means, you could do this by hand. You people who like to do by hand, you could do it by zigzag. I love my blanket stitch. I'm doing a wide, folky blanket stitch. My machine, as you see, has a automatic lifter, which is awesome. I just sort of put my needle down. It has a needle down feature. And I'm sort of holding the background fabric so it doesn't sort of ruck up. And putting my needle right at the top there. I'm just sort of holding my background fabric so it doesn't pinch up. If you're using a heavier batik, it might be a little bit easier. But I find if you glue your plate down well enough, I just sort of hold it at the end. This is where I began, and finish there. And that's what it looks like on the back side. As you can see, there's my stitching on the inside. I haven't messed up. I've done pretty good, Maxwell. And so now I'm going to just go over and I'm going to iron it. Now, the point that you guys really wanted to know is how I made my points to be able to applique it onto my background square. I'm going to show you that next. So here is my finished plate, all lovely appliqued and ironed down to my background fabric. Now that would be like a Dresden plate onto background fabric, right? That's what it looks like. But I want to add these points, and it's very, very simple. I don't know if there's another method to do it, but what I do is I have a marking pen and I have a little small ruler here. You can use any ruler. And what I do is I just go out about 1.5 inches. I go from this point, the seam and the point, the seam and the point. So I sort of follow that line with the line of my ruler, and I make a little dash just slightly above the 1.5 inches, slightly above the 1.5 inches line, because we're going to be cutting this line away, so I don't want the blue to show. So just slightly above the 1.5 inches, I'm going to go around my plate here and make my markings 1.5 inches from the seam, from the top of the seam, and then the top point. Try to keep my plate, my ruler, in line with both the point and the seam. 1.5 inches, slightly above. As you can see, that's why we needed a bit of a larger piece of background fabric to make these markings. Again, just eyeball it from the point of the ruler to slightly more than 1.5 inches. Where's the 1.5 inches? There we go. Keeping that nice and straight. Sometimes, because the marking in the pen, sometimes it's not quite, but it's fine. Let's go around here. Above 1.5 inches. Maybe there's another scientific way to do this, but is that right? Yeah. Come down and up into there, and then over to here. Okay, so there's all my little dots. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the dots. I have a straight ruler here. I'm just going to connect with my marking sort of on the outside of these dots. And it should sort of emulate, it should sort of copy the points. That's all I'm doing. I'm just making points. And then I'm going to cut this away. You see how my points are being made? Now I know there's a way that you can actually do a double layer of Dresden plates, and to me that's, I don't know, that's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of fabric. I mean, a lot of layers, I should say. So this is what I'm doing. Just connecting these dots. As you can see, sort of willy-nilly. It's not perfect. You can make it more perfect if you try better than me. But it's pretty perfect for me. Your eye will see points behind your plate. And again, this doesn't have to be white. It could be whatever color you want it to be. It could be black. I thought it would be interesting. I have a real interesting Dresden plate. If you did a plain, a solid Dresden, solid plates, a patterned pointed background, and a solid fat quarter. Wouldn't that be interesting? Like you can change it up. The whole thing about this is just changing up the sort of the boring traditional look. I mean, I love it. Let me get my other scissors. Of a Dresden plate. It's not boring, I shouldn't say that, but it's very, very, very traditional. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut just going to cut slightly inside that line, just a hair inside, so I don't have the inside line. Because this is going to be our applique. This is where we're going to applique it onto our background fat quarter. So that's why I made that line slightly larger. You can, if you wanted to have a much larger white background showing, by all means. That's the size this is. This will end up this size exactly. And I find the 1.5 inches is a nice sort of echo border around my plate. There's a few little blue lines. I want to cut them off, or they might get just in the applique stitch itself. That's fine. I always say that's fine when I sort of mess up. There you go. So now, look, there you go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut down my fat quarter here. And it measures about, this measures about 18 inches, and these are pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, they're pretty, their fat quarters come from the manufacturer, pretty good. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to come up to the square, straighten that up right there, and then I'm just going to cut that off right there. The 18. Now, if, by all means, you could have done this 18.5 inches, but the fat quarters are, this fat quarter is 18. So my square is going to finish a little bit, that's 18 inches by about 18 inches. So it'll finish a little bit smaller than that. So there you go. Look how pretty. And now again, I'm going to sort of center this. You can find the center if you want. There's a point there and a double point up there, and 2 points over here. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take my glue stick. Now, by all means, if you think that you have, I'm okay with this. If you though think perhaps, or maybe I'm not, actually maybe I'm not, that your center piece here, your center here, is your fabric's going to show through. By all means, what you can do is you can take another piece of your fabric, because I'm going to be cutting this anyway. I'm going to be quilting this, I should say. So by all means, what you could do is you could lay another piece of fabric there. There you go. And again, it's another layer, but you're really guaranteed at this center point. These aren't showing. There's not as much showing as that point there. And if I want to quilt this, which I will catch those bits in there. I'll catch that little piece in there. So I'm going to sort of line this bit right there. I don't have to line the rest, but I'm going to line this. I'm just going to glue that down, that sort of lining bit. Again, I'm not worried about, like you're freaking out, right, with the glue. Not worried about that. That will go away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue down my white plate onto my background. I will go over and I will iron it on the other side to dry it out. Again, I've never had any trouble with gumming up my needles. I put it on both the fabric and the background. That will all dry up. Then when I quilt it, that'll be nice and bright white. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over, I'm going to iron that real well, real nice, dry that all up, let it dry for a few minutes, and then I'm going to go back over to my machine, and with my white thread, I could use a red if I wanted to make it pop, or a hot pink. I may do that actually. I may change my thread up and do like a deep corally red to make this Dresden plate pop, that white. So there's my Dresden plate with my points. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and I'm going to finish stitching that on, and I'll show you.